No, you just say hi.
Hey guys, I'm going to be keeping time, so I'm going to cut you off like 4 minutes. I will walk away.
Go ahead. Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sepian.
Vera Parler.
Nico Wright. Josué Munoz. So, just to start, the start of inspiration was looking at biological systems and understanding their logics and potentially trying to utilize them for architectural conceits. We started with research into gastropods and arthropods, looking specifically at the material qualities of their shell, considering this design brief was focusing on the envelope of buildings. We were really interested in the material of the shell of gastropods. It's called chitin. It's the second most common long-chain polymer in the world. It has a very interesting property in that it comes out as a kind of very soft and pliable but tough material. It can be slightly modified with the addition of calcium carbonate to become extremely hard and rigid. The surface of the lobster is a continuous material of chitin with a material of the modification differential between joints and the shell components of the lobster. A great example of this is in gastropods, the radula, which is in fact essentially the tongue and teeth of the gastropods of the snail, has a very fine grain interrelationship of the hard and soft chitin materials, and it's actuated by a series of muscles that contract and push it out. Involved with this is the kind of molting of arthropods, which occurs through ecdysis, which is a hormone that's secreted from the epidermis of the arthropod, which then flows in between the epidermis and the shell. That then consumes the old shell, regenerating a new shell, and then husking off the old one. This became really interesting when we started to consider the history of this building as a kind of numerously retrofitted building and how we might start to imagine that.
So the whole exploration really boils down to one thing: how do you modify one property within a chemical or any element and kind of have this change of a hard versus soft? So the material exploration that we got into exhibits two different states. There is a state where the material gathers energy through material expansion, and then there's another state where the material releases energy through material contraction. So looking at how we can introduce two different kinds of materials, one that's really elastic and one that's rigid, and by applying the rigid to the elastic, which is pre-tension. So originally what we do is we take the membrane and we pre-tension that, and then we add, in this case we added silicone. In earlier explorations, we started off with just glue, hot glue. So looking at how the material could possibly self-organize depending on the patterns and the bidirectionality of the fiber and the lycra.
When we kind of began to explore these and we got to that state of exploration, we began to really analyze that structure. It was really fascinating. As she described, we took fabric, elastic fabric such as lycra, which in its kind of relaxed state is just fabric as it always is, and we stretched it high and created kind of potential energy in that elastic through tension. Then we applied this binding agent, or the silicone, across it, which was in that molded state in its relaxed state, applied to an elastic state. Then when we released that, the reaction forces spread across the entire thing and created this really wonderful condition. There's a lot more diagrams about specific structures, but we're going to talk about what we ended up doing with the building, which is this wonderful interactive model. So we are proposing to create this essentially long tunnel of this material along where the classrooms are here, between the columns and the nave and the wall. And it's actuated by large wires in tension that are being pushed up by actuators, which you can see in this, and they're related to proximity. So as the nave begins to be occupied, the sensors would sense the people and begin to inflate these volumes of rooms. You would then be able to activate them. They have, due to the kind of local cell condition, there's a kind of notion of modulating light and air through the cells and the expansion of the weave. The actuators could be supplied underneath the slab of this building, as this used to be a bus maintenance depot, and so there's these panels cut beneath your feet that could have those actuators positioned in them.
So really, yeah, so
looking at the grid, we can vary the changes of spaces and introduce smaller or larger volumes.
So there's two interactive models. There's this larger one, which will sense you as you pass in front of it if you stand and expand or contract. There's also this computer simulation of it in the entire space. If you block or run your fingers over those little sensors, you'll begin to see those spaces can expand. Thanks so much for coming.
Job. I know everyone wants to jump in, but we're going to go this way, and you guys can stay, answer questions.